The title of this podcast is Do You Want More? It depends on how you define more. This week, I had the opportunity to meet with someone who is very experienced in an area that I'm inexperienced in. And I needed their guidance to get through a process for a program or project that I'm working through. And we got to talking, as I often do anytime I'm meeting someone for the first time. I ask a few questions so that I can connect with them on a human level. And it's really important to me. I've started doing that since I was a kid. I learn a lot from people. I feel like everyone is my teacher, regardless of what their CV is, regardless of their race, their gender, or even their beliefs. I just want to learn from people and grow. And he has a long CV in terms of the things that he does. And the meeting could have just stayed right in those kinds of traditional parameters. But I asked a few more questions that took it in a deeper direction. And those questions were to deal with what informs him being in the place that he's in right now in the organization. And he shared with me that, because I said, you have quite a CV. He's like, yes, I'm always asked, why don't I aspire for a higher leadership role? And he's in leadership. And he said that there was one point in his life in which he would have done exactly that. He would aspire for something beyond that. And he was much like Keith 1.0, really achievement oriented and completely fixated on outcome. And what he shared is that he looked up one day and he noticed that he was working 70 hours a week. And he was spending less time with his family. And he had one child at home with special needs. And he had another child who was a little bit younger, but still growing up, nearing teenage years. And he had a spouse. And the kind of nurturing of those relationships were out of balance compared to the amount of time that he was spending at work. And had he pursued this career track to move to the next level in leadership, the hours would have remained the same of 70 plus a week. And there would have been even more imbalance because of all the other things he'd be tasked with being in a higher leadership role. And he's like, that wasn't what I wanted. I mean, the money may have been a little bit more, but I would have gotten a lot less in terms of my relationships, what I could give to them, as well as what I would get out of them, or what I would benefit from a relationship that I invest more into. And that really struck me. And then he said something that was really interesting. He said, the leadership that he reports to often ask him, they say, why don't you, move up? Like, you should have my job. He's like, don't you want more? He's like, these days I define more very differently than I did before. And he said, I'm in a sweet spot right now. Professionally, I feel like I make a contribution, I learn, I grow, and I add value to the organization. And in my family life, it is so much richer for me, as well as my family members, because I have more to give to them. And there are a lot of people that have time to give to their family, but the intentionality of giving to their family, the intentionality of giving at work, for him, is all the same. He doesn't give more or less to either one of them. He's found a way to give the same to both, and that's his best. And that really, really stayed with me. I remember a time as Keith 1.0, the way that I define more. And I'll just say what the cost of it was suffering inside. I was completely attached to outcome. And I didn't think about what wanting or pursuing more would mean in terms of my experience, like what it was that I really wanted. So some people do it like, hey, I want to get into a leadership position. And let's say at Mayo Clinic, I want to get into a senior leadership position, even as high as chair of a department, or the senior administrator in the department, a senior nurse in a department, whatever that is. And then what you find, and the reason that you want to get there is because I have more control. I'll be able to steer projects or set the tone of the culture a certain way. And then when you find out when you get there, you don't really get to do that as much as you would like. Instead, what you get to do is deal with other people more, and sometimes those people aren't always cooperative. And so, and there's benefit to that. Like you can develop and use a practice there to grow in those kinds of situations. But what I've learned is that to be really clear about what it is that I want, and then it doesn't matter what the position or title I have. So what I really want is I want to experience peace, and I want to be turned on all the time, no matter what happens, no matter who shows up. That's what I want. So if that's what I want at work, then guess what happens? It doesn't matter what job I get, who I work with, nothing matters, because I work on myself to continue to expand my capacity to show up that way and be okay with whatever shows up. And in the beginning, I'm not so good at it. But if I make that my intention, I get better at it. And so I've said this before, I don't have bad days. And the same thing with personal relationships and friendships is that I stop thinking about like, I need this person to be this way for me to feel loved or valued or accepted, so I need them to do more of this, or I need to do more of this, of dictating of what I need. And here are my needs and here's what I want. That's one way to do it. I've done that before, and that's a lot of suffering. And what I started to do is I started to define the kind of person or people that I need in my life. They need to do this, this, and this for me to be a certain way, or for me to feel something a certain way. And I can do that. I've done it before, as I mentioned, and again, more suffering. Or what I can do is say, I just want to experience deep relationships, period. Relationships that are full of love. That kindness is the language that we speak to each other all the time. That's what I want to feel. I want to feel that kind of deep connection with the other person. And then what happens is I don't need the other person to be a certain way because I'm not praying for a person. I want to have an experience. So I set myself up so I can hopefully be that experience for other people, as well as experience it in whoever shows up. So, I stop, demanding, that people be a certain way. Like, hey, if that makes you happy, then do your thing, like, period. You want to spend all day talking about this, my mind says, hey, that's not important. Do that. You want to work out, don't want to work out, before that would be an issue for me. Don't work out. It's your body. It's your health. Like all those things and I'm not resigned about it. I just have no control over those things. So what I do is when I define more, I define it very differently. I want to experience more joy, certainly more inner peace, more love in my experience in life with people, life situations. That's what I'm out to do. That's what I'm out to nurture, out to create. So I ask you, how do you define more? People have children. Like, I want my children. Are you saying, hey, I need my children to go to this school, to wear these kind of clothes, to do this? Is that how you define your more? Okay. So what happens when they don't do that? Or you say, I just want my children to be happy. I want them to be amazing citizens in the world. It doesn't matter what they do, it doesn't matter what school they go to, what sport they play or don't play, what color their hair is. None of that matters as long as that's the experience that they're having. And that's the experience that you're having when you're with them. So I just thought about that when I say more, what do I want? And because I define it differently, I've lost the need to be attached to a certain outcome or people be in a certain way. So the question is to you, what does more mean to you?